All right, so we're here with Representative Green. Thank you for doing the interview with us.
Sure, I'm happy to be here.
What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in. We're here at CPAC Dallas. Let's go talk to people, see what's going on. So why are we out here today?
We love Donald Trump, and we came to hear him speak to us today.
And are you hoping he runs in 2024?
Yes, we are.
And let's say someone like DeSantis stepped in, even if he was in, you'd still support Trump.
I would, but I would like DeSantis to be as vice president. I want to see
leave his post as governor of Florida, even though you feel like he's doing a good job there.
Yes.
Vacate that, leave it potentially for someone else who sucks, and then take vice president.
That's what I think. That's what I wish. So that let Trump handle the international affairs. Let DeSantis handle the domestic affairs of the country. I don't think that DeSantis has the international experience to be the president, to have to do what he has to do. But I think 4 years with Trump, he will gain that expertise. And then after that 4 years, he can run for president, and I think win it and be in a lot better position to help us all.
Okay, and what's some big thing that Trump did, legislative accomplishments, for example, back when he was president, that you were a big supporter of?
I have to say, build the wall. I mean, when you look at the present conditions now, it's terrible. And at least what he was trying to curtail that. There's nothing wrong with people moving here. We know why people move here, because we have a great country and people want to grow with it, but just have to do it legally. That's all, just legally.
But when he was in power, and he had even Congress at one point, they did not pass legislation to build the wall. He did that sort of through executive orders and things like that. But what about legislatively? Like, what did he accomplish that you were a big fan of?
Well, I like the idea of his including, under the minorities. He opened up the ability for minorities to be able to get financing, to
the Platinum Plan? Or?
Yeah.
So you were a big fan of the Platinum Plan?
Yes, and I think it was wonderful, and I think that people need to continue on with that work.
What do you think about those in the Republican Party who criticize something like the Platinum Plan, saying it was kind of like Jared Kushner putting in like identity politics and pushing that sort of agenda, sort of like race pandering instead of actual accomplishments for his base?
Well, I don't believe that. I think that's just opposition speak. I think that he had good intentions, and I think it was working, and I would like to see that continue.
So you don't think the Republican Party should kind of try to stray away from more of this like race-based type legislation where they say like, well, if you're black, we're going to give you money, we're going to support your types of universities and things like that. You don't think the Republican Party should take a step away from that and try to be more race neutral and
Yes, I do. Yes.
But that was not like a really race neutral thing, the Platinum Plan.
Right. I didn't. Yeah, I don't think that we ought to base on race limit people's progress or limit their ability to move ahead in this country, That shouldn't be anything about race or religion. It's just people ought to be able to do things. If they've got an idea, if they're creative enough, if they're innovative enough, then they ought to be able to use their mind and their thinking and have a resource available to them so that they can expand that. That's mine.
It should be like race-neutral legislation that does maybe something based on economics, like if you're a certain level of poverty, for example, but why target black people in particular for legislation like that?
I don't know if we ought to do that.
That's kind of what, I'm pretty sure that's what the Platinum Plan and even his funding of the HBCUs, that's what that did in effect.
Well, I can see if you've been hindered from getting ahead for so long, then maybe a certain class of people, then you might need to open that up a little bit.
So you support affirmative action in that sense?
In some degree, yes. Yeah.
So when, for example, right now there's a lawsuit happening where I believe a lot of these Asian students are suing Harvard, saying that they are actually being discriminated against when it comes to these affirmative action policies because they boost the scores of Latinos and black students in particular. So it makes them go to the college, like disproportionate to their actual performance. So do you support that lawsuit, or are you against that lawsuit?
I'm against that. I need to understand the question again, but I do not think that institutions ought to, based on race, keep people that are qualified from coming in.
That's kind of what affirmative action is, in a sense, is you're actually taking the racial component into account and actually giving that a certain level of value and boosting that up.
Well, if people are going to suppress it, if I understand what you're saying, that these institutions, the Asians were brought a suit because they were not being afforded the affirmative action, or they weren't being put first?
Because there's so many of them that already perform so highly, and they're already disproportionately, as a percentage of population in the institutions, they are being discriminated against based on race, because they have to, there's only a certain number of limited spots, right? And even when it comes to the Platinum Plan or the HBCUs, we have taxpayer dollars, and by putting money towards those funds, those projects, you are necessarily not allocating as much funds to something else.
Well, let me just say this. I think if a person's qualified, it doesn't make a difference how many people are qualified. If you're qualified, I think you ought to get in. If you can do the math,
then you're against affirmative action.
Well, maybe I don't understand the true definition of affirmative action. Maybe I don't quite understand that. I think everybody ought to be treated equally. I think everybody ought to have the freedom to do what they want to do, and we ought to have institutions that promote, this creativity. Because if you suppress anybody, then you're suppressing the way people think. And I think that's not good. You're preventing them from excelling. And I don't think we need to do any of that for anyone.
What do you think about Trump when he passed the First Step Act? This was criminal justice reform on the federal level. Were you a supporter of that legislation?
I'm not that familiar with that, so I don't really know.
Lowered sentencing for some of these drug crimes and things like that. And I think it even retroactively went back and adjusted people's sentences and et cetera. I mean, are you a supporter of criminal justice reform, like making sentences and penalties more lenient?
Well, I don't know if I would say that, but I think that you got to be careful about penalizing people and the type of sentencing you give them, because you ought to give people an ability to have a second chance, and they ought to be able to get out and perform, become a productive citizen. I personally, I have a family member that has been in prison. They've gotten out, and under the current system, they're able to get ahead, and they're able to work, and he's changed his life. So in the past, he got out, but there was no jobs for him. There was nothing going on for him, and so he went back in. But now that he's gotten out, largely due because of the people, America needing workers, he was able to go to work. But because of that unfortunate situation, he was able to work, and now he's being productive. So it's telling me that we got to look at some of these people in a way that we just can't, just because they went to jail, you just can't exclude them from the rest of their life. They got to be able to have a second chance, and I don't think they ought to have this stigma. That's just my personal opinion. But there's some people that need to be in jail for the rest of their life, and there's some people that need to probably undergo capital punishment, for certain crimes.
Nigel, can we get 3 phrases talking about God? So can we say God is great?
We can certainly say that.
All right. Can we say God is great?
We can say God is great.
Dios es grande.
Oh, I don't do foreign languages.
We're trying to, because
I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's in Spanish. Dios es grande. God is great.
Dios es grande. I trust you.
And then Allahu Akbar.
No.
No. Okay. This video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Moomoo. Moomoo is currently holding a very limited promotion where you can get up to 13 free stocks with a qualifying deposit. For example, you get 1 free stock opening the brokerage account, and for a limited time, an additional 9 stocks after you deposit $100, bringing the total up to 10.
And just to show how easy it is to trade on the platform, I'm going to do a live trade right now. So I'm going to buy some DM stock. I'm going to put the quantity at about 10, which is what I want to buy. And I'm going to hit buy, Face ID, hit the confirmation, and boom, order was filled. It's just as easy as that. So what are you waiting for? Sign up on Moomoo today. It's a win-win. You're making some money. Everybody's happy. It's a win-win. It's a great way to support the channel. Don't be a dummy. Make some money. Sign up for Moomoo today.
So why are we out here today?
Well, I'm here to celebrate my freedom and my liberty and meet with like-minded people who share a lot of the same beliefs, people who are rooted in principle and in God and things that matter to me.
So you have a shirt here. It says Communist News Network, CNN. What are your thoughts on CNN?
Well, they're very low. I lived in Venezuela for 8 years previously. I know a thing or two about socialism and communism under both the Chavez and Maduro regimes. And so I know also about censorship, and I know about editing news content to fit a narrative. And so I've been subject to that in my personal life. So it's not necessarily me being subject or subjected to things that I hear here in the States. I've formed an opinion based on experience about the news media, and so I'm very skeptical. And CNN in particular, to answer your question, they're very much one of the main offenders.
Is there anybody at CNN that you feel like is actually a communist?
Well, I don't know if they're a communist in the truest sense, but I know that they condone policies that are contrary to American values, and they've done that for a long time. I used to watch the station when Bernard Shaw was there back in the 80s. They were very objective back in the day, and they've changed quite a bit, and it's unwatchable, and all of that is kind of represented in their ratings or the lack thereof.
What are some of the policies that you believe they support that are like communist in nature?
Well, I think that part of it's kind of rooted in a lot of their reporting that's not accurate, be it about the economy, be it about our political representatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's over there, like Lauren Boebert, like President Donald Trump, making assessments that conservatives are racists. I'm a Caucasian. I lived in Venezuela, as I mentioned, for 8 years. I've dealt with Latinos in the truest sense for a number of years, the majority of which are actual brown people, what we call mestizos, but we wrongly don't make distinctions between ethnicities and races here in the States. And so I think that they've pigeonholed a lot of us to fit a certain narrative when in fact we don't belong.
Sure, but I mean, those aren't like communist policies. There's a specific like policy that you feel like they support.
Well, communist policies are oppressive policies that affect journalism, and they're curtailing actual honest journalism. I mean, it's the same. It's propaganda.
Sure, but I feel like there could be liars who are like not communist, but they happen to be liars and they distort the truth. But is there like a specific policy that they support that's kind of communist in nature?
Okay, well, let's talk about that. So when they were talking about peaceful protests during BLM and Antifa, all of that is consistent with what the colectivos do in Venezuela, okay? So it's acting out, breaking laws with absolute impunity, okay, with the consent of the government and the media, and not calling those out. I mean, there are hours and hours of footage of what occurred with the BLM and Antifa riots, and no one's been held accountable.
Sure, so you're talking about it more so in the way they do propaganda, but not necessarily as far as like policy that they support?
Well, I think policy is, propaganda is a way to embed and support policy.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a way to validate it.
And the policy itself, I'm asking, like, is there anything that you feel like they support that's communist in nature?
Well, I think that a lot of what they report on with respect to redistribution of wealth and making accommodations with respect to some of the lies of, it doesn't ring a bell what it's called, but it has to do with college enrollment, quotas, and things of that nature.
Oh, affirmative action?
Affirmative action, yeah. I think that's a big problem, and I think that really is consistent with that whole propaganda in policies that are communist and socialist in nature.
Marjorie, when's our push-up competition? You gave me the rain check. Remember push-ups?
I've got to get, I'll whip you on that.
Later. Mr. Schlapp, how's it going? Good to see you again.
Recognize you. Hey, we went to CPAC Israel. You should have come with us.
I wanted to go.
Oh, you
CPAC
were too
Hungary as well.
busy.
Are you willing to do an interview right now? We good to go?
I don't ever say no to you.
Awesome. Perfect. So I wanted to ask you, so there was this story in the National Pulse about the new venture fund
I don't really read the National
Well,
Pulse. What is that?
So what's this new venture fund that gave you guys about $188,000, I think?
I don't really know what the new venture fund is.
But they gave you guys about $188,000. They're involved. It's like a Soros-linked fund, and they do like race, diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. So what was the reason for taking that money?
Yeah, well, that's a lie. There's no George Soros money here.
All right, quick pause here. I want to explain what I was asking Matt Schlapp about here because I imagine a lot of you don't understand, and of course he denied the allegations. But I was asking about this group called New Venture Fund. Now I want to thank Raheem Kassam over at National Pulse. He's the one who wrote this article saying, revealed, Matt Schlapp's CPAC took six-figure social action donation from Soros-linked dark money network. Here's his name, Raheem Kassam. And he writes here, the New Venture Fund, whose mission statement revolves around race, equity, diversity, and inclusion commitment, issued a cash grant of $183,250 to the ACU run by Matt and Mercedes Schlapp in 2020. The fund is known for its work supporting anti-Trump, anti-conservative initiatives. And you can see the section in the 990 here, which I'll pull up. And if we scroll down, we can see this is the 990 filing from New Venture Fund. And they got contributions and grants to the tune of about $1 billion in the current year, which is insane. And if we scroll down to page 75, we can see right here, American Conservative Union getting a cash grant of $183,250. And it says purpose of grant or assistance, civil rights, social action, and advocacy. Interesting. And as you can see here, the New Venture Fund, when it comes to candidates, this is not where the big money goes, but when they give to candidates directly, in 2022, 100% of the donations went to Democrats. In 2020, only about 2.4% went to Republicans, but when you look at the numbers closer, I don't know where this big number comes from, but if we scroll down, we can see 0 to Republicans in the House, apparently $30 on average to members of the Senate, of which they gave to 2, so that's $60 in total contributions. So I don't know where the rest of that, $1,480 or whatever came from, but every other year, 2018, 100% Democrat. 2016, 100% Democrat. 2014, 100% Democrat. They're a Soros-linked organization, and they're involved in diversity, equity, inclusion, civil rights advocacy, criminal justice stuff. And he pretended like he didn't know what I was talking about. An apparent leftist organization gives your alleged conservative group $183,000, and you claim you don't know what that group is. You claim that's fake news, a fake story. And I've had conversations with people who are in the know, who will remain nameless, who pretty much say that this was nonsense coming from Schlapp. And I think the people would like to know, why is he denying this when I'm asking him about it? If it's actually true, which the filings show it's true, why did you take the money? What was the reason that they gave you the money? I think we have an idea, but maybe that's a video for another time. Anyways, back to the video.
At CPAC, the irony here is that we just had Prime Minister Orban. Did you hear his speech? He is George Soros' arch nemesis, and he was here at CPAC, so no Soros money here.
Okay. All right, so there you go. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Hopefully security doesn't kick me out. Yeah, right here.
Okay. I need your credentials for you to get together too, please. And what does the MB stand for?
Nuance, bro.
Nuance?
Nuance, bro, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Please don't approach him unless you have any other contact with him.
All right.
If that happens, we'll take your credentials and walk you out. Okay?
Sounds good. All right, thank you. Talking and talking. So Blackwater, then Z, then Academy. Is it still Academy, or what's the new one? What's the deal?
I sold that business 12 years ago.
12 years ago. I saw you did an interview with Mehdi Hassan, and he like got you on something. What was that, and what was like the follow up from that?
That was a lesson in never doing taped media, especially with liberal leftist hacks.
What was it like? What was the misunderstanding there? No? All right. Have a nice day. Cool. That was interesting.
In November 2017, you told Congress under oath that you played, quote, no official or really unofficial role in the Trump campaign. What you didn't tell Congress is that on August 3rd, 2016, you were at a meeting during the campaign at Trump Tower with Don Jr., Trump's son, with Stephen Miller, then a campaign advisor to Trump, with George Nader, a former Blackwater colleague of yours who acts as a back channel to the Saudis, the Emiratis. He also happens to be a convicted pedophile. And also Joel Zamel, an Israeli expert on social media manipulation. How come you didn't mention that meeting to Congress, given it's so relevant to their investigation?
I did, as part of the investigations. I certainly disclosed any meetings. The very few I had.
Not in the congressional testimony you gave to the House. We went through it. You didn't mention anything about August 2016 meeting in Trump Tower. They specifically asked you what context you have, and you didn't answer that.
I don't believe I was asked that question.
You were asked were there any formal communications or contact with the campaign. You said apart from writing papers, putting up yard signs, no. That's what you said. I've got the transcript of the conversation here.
Sure. I mean, I might have been, I think I was at Trump headquarters or the campaign headquarters.
Trump
maybe,
Tower, August 3rd, 2016. You,
possible.
An Israeli dude, a back channel to the Emiratis and the Saudis, Don Jr., Stephen Miller.
We're there to talk about Iran policy.
Are you there to talk about Iran policy? Mm-hmm. Don't you think that's something important to disclose to the House Intelligence Committee while you're under oath?
I did.
You didn't. We just went through the testimony. There's no mention of the Trump Tower meeting in August 2016. Why not?
I don't know if they got the transcript wrong.
They got the transcript wrong. So if we go,
I don't know. I remember certainly just.
I mean, this is a problem for you because we know that Robert Mueller, he hasn't been able to establish collusion yet, but he has got a lot of guys for lying to the authorities and not telling the whole truth. Is that a problem now? That even if you accidentally didn't tell them, that could come back and haunt you?
I fully cooperated. I haven't heard from anybody in more than 9 months.
So why are we out here today?
We're out here supporting America. First of all, defending Texas and doing it to save America.
Okay. And I see you guys have Trump hats on, 2024. Is that who you're supporting in 2024?
Yes.
Okay. What's the biggest thing you support about Trump?
Of course, election integrity, number one. It's securing our border. And, of course, getting all these damn prices back down.
So what is it about election integrity that you saw Trump do in the lead up to the 2020 election that you thought was like, it gave him your vote coming up?
Basically, fighting off the mail-in ballots. Like those mail-in ballots, they just cause a lot of shit. To be honest.
Was he successful in doing so?
He wasn't. But no, that's why we have Joe Biden, not President Trump, right now.
What do you think about other people who have been rumored to be running for the presidency who actually were able to get some of this election integrity legislation done?
It's gonna be a hard battle for them, but President Trump, the party is still loyal to the president, so. President Trump was going to come through in the primaries, and of course, America's pretty pissed off with Joe Biden, so President Trump's going to win this.
What do you think was Trump's biggest legislative accomplishment?
Let's see, biggest legislative thing. What would I say? I'd say establishing peace in the Middle East. Getting.
That's not a legislative accomplishment.
True. That's true. Honestly, I really can't tell you. It's a lot.
Do you guys have anything like? What would you think is Trump's biggest legislative accomplishment?
Probably before he led up to helping, he had responses and leading up to helping pass Roe v. Wade and having it overturned.
He passed Roe v. Wade?
Like overturned it. He helped. Like he helped overturn it.
That's not legislative. That's like putting in Supreme Court justices who interpret the Constitution in a way that's congruent with overturning Roe v. Wade, right? But is there like a specific legislative accomplishment that you think is like his best one?
Not specifically. Like I didn't really pay attention to his legislative ways. It was more supreme that I paid attention to. But honestly, I didn't really see legislative. Honestly.
So was the overturning of Roe v. Wade a big deal for you guys?
Yes, we are. My family, we're very pro-life. Especially being Hispanics. We're raised to be pro-life. Hispanic values are conservative values.
Okay. And what is it like? What kind of legislation would you support when it comes to abortion? Like, are you just a full-out, outright ban, no exceptions?
Yes.
Okay. So even life of the mother, like the mother's like might die if she goes through with the pregnancy. You don't support abortion in that case?
No, abortion is just wrong.
Okay. So like
there are some circumstances when comes to abortions. Like I know that women do go through traumatizing and rapings, and I know women do fight for that in cases of wanting to get abortions in that case. And yes, sometimes I do support it.
You supported an exception in that case?
In some cases, yes, but
You disagree with him?
yes, in some ways. But I do see it also, and there's our matters that like women do need to dress a little bit more properly, because they wouldn't be getting raped if they're dressing half naked in the streets.
You're saying women, because they dress in certain ways, like are they asking for it, or like they're getting raped because of the way they dress, or?
Yes, because they call attention to their bodies, and men, yes, in a way, yes, men are also pathetic and disgusting, and they don't know how to control themselves, and they call attention to the women. Women call attention to them. It's a circle. If women dress properly, men will control themselves. Men will control themselves. It's kind of unexplanatory. I see it, but if women could dress a little bit more properly, men would be able to control themselves.
You think a rapist would look at a woman and say, "Oh, well, she's dressed properly. I no longer want to rape her," or something?
No. So like
when someone sees, for example, like there was a case in Ohio, I think it was a 9-year-old girl was raped, and she was 10 when she was like pregnant, and then she wanted to get an abortion. Do you think if the 9-year-old dressed more modestly, that she wouldn't have been raped by this older illegal immigrant guy?
No, not necessarily. So that there are those perverts out there that will do it at any circumstances, but the majority of those cases are because there are women that don't control themselves of alcohol, dressings. So
in that case that I just mentioned, would that be an exception for abortion that you would accept, but you wouldn't?
Yeah, I would accept that.
You would accept it?
Yes.
So that's an exception for you. Okay, interesting. Yes. All right. Are there any other, like, what's the biggest issue to you guys? Like, what's your most important issue for you guys?
I would say, closing the border, like, or not really closing, but more like securing our border.
Like the caravans that we have going over the border in numerous amounts of times, it's unacceptable. Like, we didn't have that with Trump. Like, we have tons of caravans coming, and it's need to stop. Like, it's unacceptable. And these people come, and they don't even do nothing. They're just like wanting to do what they do in their other countries, selling stuff in the streets, and
yeah, like
it looks
our father, is actually from Mexico. He came here in the 90s. Of course, did come here legally, but no, he's worked his ass off. He
came illegally or legally?
Illegally. Okay. But he pays his taxes. And doesn't break the law. We're not saying like all illegals are bad, but there's some that break the laws, and then they still come back constantly.
So you're saying as long as if they come illegally but they're paying taxes, it's okay? Is what you would say?
Pay the taxes, follow the law, and just don't cause any issues.
So it seems like the only issue with illegal immigration you have is that maybe it's like a taxation issue. If people were paying their taxes, you wouldn't have an issue with it. You would have like open borders, for example.
That's a tricky one. I really wouldn't do open borders, but I would have a strong, secure border, because a nation without border.
You would have, like, if everybody could be vetted through the system and they could all get documentation and everything, would you like to have a de facto open border in that sense, where we don't have like caps and limits and things like that on people?
I would probably go back to a pre-Reagan thing, circular flow. Like people would come here to work for a bit and then go home. Just like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like obviously if they have kids here under the current 14th Amendment interpretation, those kids would be citizens, and then it gets kind of complicated. If the kid wants to stay here, they go to school, etc. So would you grant these people like green cards? Would you put a cap on green cards, cap on citizenship, or would you have it just open as long as people are here paying their taxes and all that?
I would put a cap,
What would the cap be to you?
I really don't have a number, to be honest.
Lauren, can we say God is great in a few languages? God is great?
God is great.
Dios es grande?
Excuse me, gentlemen. Thank you, sir.
Damn it. All right, so we're here with Representative Green. Thank you for doing the interview with us.
Sure, I'm happy to be here.
I saw you on Timcast, and I think the subject came up about, Roe v. Wade obviously being overturned, and then there was a specific case out of Ohio that initially a lot of people started questioning, thinking it was fake, but unfortunately there was an illegal immigrant who had raped I think then maybe 9-year-old girl who was then 10 years old when she was pregnant, and then she went to Indiana to get the abortion performed. And I think it was the Ohio Attorney General who said that, under their laws, it would actually be permitted to have an abortion, because that would be, if a 10-year-old, they don't view that as, they view that as like health of the mother exception, life of the mother. Is that an exception that you believe in, and do you believe that in that specific case, like an abortion would be permitted.
You know what upsets me so much is, of course, that happening to that child. It's horrific and it's completely illegal, right? The fact that that child was raped and became pregnant. But that, you know what they don't talk about every single day? The women that use abortion as birth control. I mean, let's be really, really honest about it. I can give you what I think about those rare, extremely rare circumstances, but when Roe versus Wade gets overturned and over 63 million people have been slaughtered in the womb because of the evil lie that has been sold to women that somehow they'll solve their problems if they kill their baby. What a horrific lie. But here's what the media, nobody wants to talk about. The women that when they accidentally get pregnant, that becomes their form of birth control. And that's the truth about abortion. That's really what we should be talking about, not using one awful, horrific, rare instance that we're all against, that we're all outraged over. Why does that become all of a sudden the deciding block for abortion? No.
Sure, I don't think that should be used as a justification to say, oh, well, now all abortions are permitted. But in that particular case, I did want to get your opinion on that. Like, do you think an abortion would be permitted in a case like that?
Well, obviously it was. That was the state law, and the whole purpose.
I mean, like for you, if you were able to create a legal regime, you know, like, do you support? Something like that?
I'm a Christian. I don't believe in judging all circumstances.
Like legislation, we have to pass legislation. Right?
Yeah, but I don't work at the state level. I'm at the federal level.
But at the federal level, there's been suggestions to pass like a nationwide ban.
Roe being overturned gives it back to the states. So in Georgia, we have the heartbeat law, and that's the bill that got passed, and that's the one that's in place for Georgia. New York, they have abortion up until birth. It's like unbelievable.
But you wouldn't support then federal legislation to ban abortion nationwide?
Well, I have co-sponsored the Life at Conception Act because I believe life starts at conception. That is what I believe, and if I get the chance to vote on that, I'll definitely vote yes.
Does that ban it nationwide, or?
It makes it acknowledges when life starts, and so then that would lead to changing.
But would you support federal legislation that bans nationwide?
I don't support the rape of a child. I don't support any of that's happening. And again, I'm not going to boil abortion down to this one horrific instance. I think there's a lot of other things we can talk about.
One last thing. Obviously, I've seen you at these events before. I've challenged you to a push-up competition. You've given me a rain check multiple times. Are we going to do that right now?
I am in a dress and
okay,
high
how about
heels.
a pull-up competition? That was another one.
Yeah, sure. I think this thing would fall over if you and I jumped up there.
Are we doing another rain check?
I think if you organized it with Nick
Sure.
or one of my
All
guys,
right.
maybe I could.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Prepared, but I'm not willing to get down in a dress.
All right, sounds good.
Be on
well, I
video
appreciate your time.
The
Sure.
leftist media would throw that everywhere and say horrible things.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. Awesome. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. Support us at nuancebro.com/join, and I'll see you next time. Bro.
Nuance Bro?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.